but you'll be able to hear me.
Robservations with Robert, Meyer, Burnett.
Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Welcome to Robservations Midnighter. It's me once again, your Viceroy of Verisimilitude, your Duke of Dope Discourse. You know all those names. I don't have to say them at night. I'm Robert Meyer Burnett, and this is the Midnighter, episode number 14. Now, as many of you know, I spent many years, maybe too many years, producing, editing, and being the visual effects and post supervisor of a low-budget indie film called Tango Shalom. And tonight in New York City, actually in Brooklyn, the movie came home. It was actually made in Brooklyn. It was shot on the streets of Brooklyn. And since the beginning of the year, the movie was only playing in festivals virtually. It played in India. It played in Turkey. It's going to Morocco and Japan and Australia. It's going to Buenos Aires. It's going to Spain. But tonight, it came home to Brooklyn. I wasn't there. It was the first time it ever played in a live venue. I don't quite understand the venue it played in, and I don't really know much about what happened. However, an imagination connoisseur, who you will know as Joe the Lawyer, sent me an email and said, "Hey, Rob, I'm going to see your movie tonight." And I said, "Dude," he sent me a lot of pictures and video, which I'm going to turn into a piece and put it up on both the Tango Shalom YouTube page and our own YouTube page. So thank you to Joe the Lawyer for doing this. I want to bring him on, and I want to find out, the first person I've ever talked to of the general public. I know saw the film too, but here's somebody uncut, unfiltered, and he's a lawyer, so I would expect I'm going to hear the uncut truth. So help him God. And it's about God. It's about Hashem. So please let me bring on Joe the Lawyer. Joe, welcome to Robservations Midnighter.
Hey, Rob, thanks for having me on, man. This is really cool of you to do. Didn't expect it. Now I'm nervous and happy all at the same time.
Well, don't be nervous. No, I know that people are going to be like, well, why can't we see him? I'm protecting his identity because of Tony Soprano and Michael Corleone. Just saying. No, he's Joe the Lawyer, and he's known that way in D&D circles. But I didn't want to conflate his real job. He is a real lawyer, and he might work for people that would object to him talking about Dungeons and Dragons, because you never know. No one wants to be known. Like, what if he's throwing some loaded 20-sided die? I don't know.
That's it. Absolutely. And I love the shirt. The total coincidence.
Oh yes,
I leveled up today with a natural 20 showing.
With the natural 20, that is exactly right. Because I too am a geek. I mean, my D&D days are sort of behind me, but I have lots of friends who play in D&D. John Campia, who I stream with, actually had a table made with a TV screen in it, so he can show maps and they can play D&D, and it's pretty cool. It's an interactive D&D table that he had made. But Joe, you reached out to me today, and you actually went to go see Tango Shalom first of all, I know it's the Brooklyn Film Festival, and you sent me pictures. Where the hell were they screening this thing?
This was at the Windmill Theater or something like that. It was called, I think. It was, they do this the Google Maps thing that find my directions and get me there. And Google Maps said, "Oh, you have arrived." And I'm like, "Where the hell is it?" And I walked up and down the street. Where the hell is it? And it was about
that's always a good
feet
sign.
Away. So I was like, I'm getting into the places where there's a lot more graffiti here. I better turn around and go the other way, But it was nice. It was a nice place. I can't tell what the hell it was or is on a normal basis, but there was a bar. So that had me feeling
that's
okay.
Always good.
They weren't serving anything, but there was still a bar. So, and then they had a nice room with screening and maybe 100 chairs in there. Folding chairs or whatnot, and there was, I tell you what, half of the people there were locals who seemed to be either in the movie or related to people in the movie.
Right. Well, I mean, it was shot in Brooklyn. It was shot in Crown Heights, and it was shot So I'm sure that half the people who lived in Brooklyn worked on this film. I had to type all of their names into the credits. So I know myself. But now, what made you decide to want to venture out and go? Have you seen a movie in a theater since COVID has started or ended?
No, this is the first movie. This is the first time I've been out, not only just to see a movie since COVID, but just to do something other than quick runs into stores for whatever I need. You know what I mean?
Right.
So this is my first sort of big event, and I have a wedding in Jersey. I live north of Jersey, and I have a wedding in Jersey coming up. So I'm thinking, I'll take the 4-day weekend, and then I realized that, during one of your shows, you were talking about this movie, and I'm like, where the hell is it coming? I wonder. And I looked it up, and I saw Brooklyn, and I saw that it comes on the same weekend. Basically, I left work an hour and a half early, and I'm like, I'm going to go see this damn thing. So I figured I could buy a ticket early, got it in there. It was all good. Shot down and started my 4-day weekend early by seeing the movie. Just starting the weekend, busting loose from COVID and just seeing a good movie,
Well, I am touched and honored that you went and decided to make this, your post-COVID film.
Yeah,
and
it was worth it. It was totally worth it too.
Well, I'm curious. So you went in this venue, and obviously the people there. I mean, I know half of our production staff, our producers were there. One of our producers was wearing like Pride pants. It's like
they were quite noticeable. Yeah.
Yes, and I was like, Claudio, what are you wearing? I mean, he goes to love parades, and he loves that, and he's actually a psychiatrist. He works in a prison. He's
Really?
a prison psychiatrist. Yes.
Okay.
And he's a movie producer, and he's an actor in the film.
Yeah,
so,
he was the brother, right?
Yeah, he was the brother, a multi-hyphenate there. And
Yeah.
then Jose Laniato, who stars, it's Jose and Claudio. Jose is the main star of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess, and by the way, you can say whatever you want. You cannot hurt my feelings, just so you know.
How about spoilers? I didn't want to give it away if you don't want to get into too much stuff.
Well, in terms of spoilers, there's the unique solution they have to the problem they face in the movie in terms of dancing. Maybe
Gotcha.
not give that away.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
okay.
I'm curious because, everybody that I've ever talked to that has seen the movie, I mean, most people are connected with it. I haven't actually talked to, when you work on a film, you work on it really in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. And it's mostly me and Gabe Bologna, the director, we're watching this movie literally on and off for years.
Yeah.
And then we show it to people that we kind of know. And they want to be obviously helpful, but you never learn more than when you show a movie to somebody that you don't know personally, and hear their feedback. So I've called this movie. First of all, it embodies independent cinema. It's very low budget, and we tried to make it look as not low budget as we could, but it's really a low budget film, really a labor of love, really a family affair, as you could probably tell watching it.
Yeah.
And I like to call people like, what is this movie about? And I say, well, it's an indie Jewish spiritual quest family dance comedy fable. And that's
perfect.
That's because that's what the world needs more of. So I ask you, I throw it to you, Joe the lawyer. What were your impressions of Tango Shalom?
Well, I was thinking about that on a drive home, and the phrase that came to me was a good movie, and it was a good movie about goodness.
I love that.
It was just remind me of Amelie. Remember that movie Amelie?
Oh, my girlfriend Elizabeth and I bonded over Amelie. I don't think I would know her. It's one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah, me too. It's one of those movies that just it sort of restores faith in the world and simple goodness and simple good things, and in people helping each other. And that's I had the same vibe with this. And a slight Monty Python thing going on there too. When you see the Holy Land.
Oh yeah. Well, it's in that. I'll tell you something. People ask me, so what do I do? Like as a producer, and obviously when they shot that, I said you got like 6 holy men, 6 people there and a woman, and I go when they look, they go, behold the Holy Land. There was no Holy Land.
Yeah.
Like they don't look at anything. And I said to Gabe, I go, well, what we need like a matte painting that looks like it's from a 1950s biblical epic. So it has to look like a painting. You know, and so Gabe's like, well, where are we going to get that? And I said, well, I have a special effects artist I work with on the Star Trek fan film Axanar, and I had him do it for me. You know, he did that. It's a digital painting of the Holy Land. There's birds flying. You see the sun shining. And I said, look, it's got to look like it's animated almost. It has to look like it's from the 50s. And when he sent it to me, it worked really well. So they all turn and they look.
Yeah.
You know, we cut to it. And then it's a dream sequence. And when originally we had it, Moses, by the way, that's my voice. I'm the voice of Moses in the movie.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, it was. I'm glad you didn't. That's good. And then when he wakes up from the dream sequence, I said, you know, Gabe, we need a oomph, we need a pow. I said, what if Moses gets struck by lightning? And that wasn't in the script, and I had Tobias do that effect, and then he wakes up. Yeah. But so it's sort of set the stage, and you know, it literally says in the land of Canaan. Mm-hmm. So it sounds to me like you really got the intent of the movie, which makes me pleased.
And it was just kind of like what the doctor wrote her after this hell of a year the entire world has had. You know what I mean? It was just a nice movie to feel good about. You know, there was a couple things that I wouldn't say predictable, but happily you think it might happen, and it does. And it's like, good. You know, good. Yes. Damn it, good. It's time for something good to happen.
Yes.
You know, we're overdue this year.
Now, I mean, I just am curious, did you buy, like, obviously Moshe, the Orthodox rabbi, goes out and he meets other men of faith.
Yeah.
Did you buy that? Because a lot of people have said, I mean, some audiences have said, mostly Jewish audiences have said, there's no way an Orthodox Jew would go into a church. And we're like, it's a fable. I mean, he's talking. He believes God's talking to him in his dreams. Once you've done that, I mean, are you gonna hold fast to a religious dogma? I mean, I think the whole bit is that he is a man of faith, and it's a fable. Yeah. You know.
Yeah, it's a quest. Your faith is rocked a little bit, right? His faith was, I'm having these dreams that say I must go and dance for God, dancing for money, right? So
exactly.
Most people who dance for money aren't wearing the cloth of any form of religion. They're in a seedy bar, you know. I love the fact. It sounds to me like you totally got the movie. Was the audience digging it? Did anybody laugh? They were. A lot of people were laughing. Yeah. And I got the thing about seeing other people, because it's when you're in doubt, when you're facing a spiritual crisis, you need necessarily to reach out to people you don't normally reach out to, because the crisis is of your culture or of your group or of your whatever it is that you're a part of, right? So you're questioning that, so you look somewhere else, whether because you're doubting, whether because you're questioning whether you're right or wrong, or is there something bigger, something less, something you're missing. And so it totally made sense, and the audience got it. They were laughing at parts. A couple of parts I got a little tear near the end. You know, I got to admit, it was good. You know, so it totally made sense, and the audience was into it, and there was a lot of humor that I think if you were Jewish, you got it more so than if you weren't.
Right.
So there's some, the more obvious ones that I picked up on. I'm not Jewish. I'm, raised Catholic, but, like most Catholics.
The same thing. It's all about guilt, Joe. It's all the guilt. Yeah.
Guilt and shame, right?
Our Jewish mothers and our Catholic mothers, they're all the same.
Oh, yeah. I was looking there. I was like, you can't tell much between an Italian grandmother and a Jewish grandmother in some of those scenes.
Nope.
Same damn thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What's interesting is Joel Zwick, my fellow producer, he directed my big fat Greek wedding. And he really, it was funny because he gave us some notes when he saw the film. He was very pleased with it. So that was a tough crowd. When we showed it to him, I was like, man, I hope he likes it. And he did. So that's really what it's about. It's about family.
Yeah. And coming together and bonding over something so different and so strange to their belief system. I mean, they all came together in various parts. The people who didn't like each other, the people who you never thought would get along, the two grandmothers. Right? That was awesome. So they're sewing together.
Right.
What is that stitch? That's a good stitch. Oh.
That's great. I mean, I love that you remember that. That was always one of my favorites. To see the two of them, by the way, Renee Taylor and Lainey Kazan have been working together for more than 50 years, and to have them in that scene together, they were hilarious. And getting to meet them was a highlight of my, because Renee and her ex-husband Joe, who played the Catholic priest in the movie, he passed away.
I saw that in the credits. He was a great actor. I didn't know who he was, but I was kind of sad, even though I saw him in this.
Oh, he was in movies like My Favorite Year, which I really love, with Peter O'Toole, and he was in the 60s. He was a madman. He was an ad man on Madison Avenue, just
really?
like in the show Mad Men. Yeah, and he met Renee, and they started writing. They were nominated for an Academy Award for Best Screenplay, and I think 72 or something, for a movie called Lovers and Other Strangers. So it was really a real privilege to work with them.
Wow.
And Joe did get to see a cut of the movie before he passed away. He passed away of cancer, but I believe it was 83 or something when he passed. So, I mean, it was really interesting. And then even like, there's a rapper in the film that you see dancing with Moshe. Well, they make fun of him at first.
Yeah.
And he has a scar on his face, and there's a rap song that he sings. It's in the movie, and he passed away as well.
Oh, geez.
So I know it's crazy when you make films and then people are no longer with us, and you're looking at them every day cutting.
Yeah.
And all
he was a young guy too, the rapper. He seemed like a young guy.
He was
right?
a really young guy. Young guy. Well, now let me ask you this, because you're a lawyer. What kind of law do you practice? I got to know a little bit about you.
Yeah. Well, I practiced for just a couple of years, and then I started working for an organization back when the foreclosure crisis hit, to help people in foreclosure. So that's what I've been doing for about 12 years now. So yeah, I rather it's never be rich, but you'll have a cleaner conscience.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
now, you were telling me before we went on, you do identify as an imagination connoisseur.
Yeah. I'm a geek, and I'm a fat guy, but I'm a narrow geek. You know what I mean? There's only a few things in my geekdom bailiwick. Like, I was never into comics growing up because we were too damn broke to afford them. Right? The only comics I saw were the Sunday cartoons that your father buys the paper. Right? But yeah, D&D was my thing growing up. Still do it with my buddies and friends,
When did when did you start playing D&D?
84.
Wow,
14.
okay.
Yeah. So I've been doing it pretty much, other than a few stops here or there, pretty much ever since. It's sort of my creation avenue, my venue for creating things and, having fun with the guys, basically,
Right, absolutely. Now, for you, and do you have a regular D&D game now?
Yeah, we got a couple going on. They are virtual now because COVID and all that.
Sure.
But, you do it online. It's the same thing as it was as a kid or growing up and in college and post college, and then you always take a gap when people start popping out kids, right? And it doesn't,
right.
You do what you can, but so you still go at it. Now a lot of the guys are the mid 50s or whatever. The kids are older. They're more time to themselves to do whatever they want to do. So their games are getting back going again.
Yeah, I mean, we used to have a standing beach volleyball game every Saturday. We played for like 8 years, and like you said, then people started getting married and having kids, and then there went the game.
Yeah.
And then when people bring their kids, they didn't want to sit around for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours watching us play beach volleyball all day. So it just didn't work. Well, let me ask you this. Has D&D changed at all? I mean, you've been playing it for 35 years, 36 years.
Oh, yeah.
How is it? And how has it changed over the years?
It's become a different sort of game, I think, with the generations. There was, or the earlier, games, there was, I don't know, you want to look at it in terms of deadliness, right? There was, you roll up a guy, you don't bother naming the character until he's third level because he's going to be dead soon anyhow. You know what I mean? If you get the third level, you've earned your damn name, right? That was kind of the way, the ethos of it or whatever. And it was less structured, less creating a world environment. Like everybody wanted to, mimic Tolkien and elves and dwarves and this and that back in the day, right? But it grew as the players grow and you have more knowledge and more ability to create and imagine a greater world. You have then the ability to have more immersion with your characters and things make more sense. Why would the king do this? Why would they do that? Right. And so you develop, I think, as a writer, you develop as a person, because I mean, for me, I was always living at the library. I go down there and take the skateboard down and spend the summer there because they had air conditioning, right? So I'd sit there and read everything I could, usually related to history or, sociology or whatever it is that helps the D&D game. So it was an avenue for learning. And so you try to put all that into the game that you can. But as far as the game goes, as the players and dungeon masters grow and develop, they expect more. They want more things. So it makes it for a more fun game because you're creating a world. You're writing stories together, basically, right? But
Right.
but you're not trying to have a railroad session where they do only what you want to do. You want to have an open world environment where they can do whatever the hell they want to do.
Now,
Right? So that's a different story.
have the rules changed much over the years?
Oh yeah, definitely. The earlier rule sets were simpler, more deadly, and allowed for more freedom to do more things because there was less codification within the rules of what you could or couldn't do. So
Okay.
people would try to do things, and the DM or the players would just roll with things a lot more, right? And so as the later editions went on, it became a game of exponential growth of powers and abilities that are built into the rule set, right? And so what you had was rules bloat, and players, instead of looking at, instead of imagining and looking at the situation, what can I do? What should I do? They look at their character sheets in the rule books to say, what am I allowed to do?
Okay.
Right. And so it became less imagination and more how to min-max a situation based on, the rule book in front of you. Right. So that was sort of the evolution of it. Now, what was interesting was around 0809, they came out with the 4th edition of D&D.
Sure.
And pretty much there was like 9 people in the world who liked it, and the rest of us thought it sucked. So we just didn't play. Right. And at the same time, Gary Gygax, who created the game, died.
Right.
Right. And so everybody sort of, we did at least, we had a little tribute to, hey, let's play the game we used to play in 1984. Right. And so we started playing this game, and a lot of other people playing these games. And we're just like, this is a good game. And I think that now I have the capability to run it better than I did back then. And so a lot of people got into what they called this old school renaissance. It became an old school flavored game, and we all sort of explored the game and relearned it and thought about it like we couldn't think about it when we were 12 and 15 years old, right?
Yeah,
and
right, exactly.
Interpreted the game in a different way, and so we just kept playing it, and we just kept going. And so this became, I don't know, last 12 years or so, it's been sort of a thing where it became, I don't know, a retro cool in a way, and there's this small community of people who were designing things for it and had a lot of influence on the latest edition of the game because people said, let's take some of the elements of the old stuff and put it into the new stuff. And so it really did influence it in a lot of ways. So it's kind of neat. Me, I'm still playing most of the older games,
But you keep coming back. And so you said you had a few regular games that you play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, do you play with the same people, or do people rotate in and out of the games, or how does that work?
Well, the same people on various games. But I guess there's two main groups of people I play with, and then I'll run one within that group of players, and then another player will run one game, and then in the other group it's the same situation. We have, Tim runs a game, Rob runs a game, but we all play in each other's games, right? Something like that. So yeah, it gives everybody a chance to explore different things they want to try out, because it's almost like you're doing improv acting in a lot of ways,
right?
Taking on a character, right? So it's just fun, so you get in there and you just play around and see what you can do to have fun, because it's really what it's all about at the end of the day.
Now, how many people, I know, like in Hollywood, I know that there's a lot of, well, I guess what you'd call them celebrity D&D games.
Yeah.
Where Joe Manganiello has its own, really, he built a dungeon in his house. A lot of people play there, but I've got a lot of friends that are TV writers and producers, and they have standing games that they've been playing sometimes for years at a time.
Yeah.
And like, how many people play at your various games? Like, how many players are there per game?
Usually 3, 4, 5.
Oh, that's
once you get into the higher numbers, more players, it gets too complicated.
Right. And you said you play a couple times a week?
Yeah. Usually after work at night, you hop on 7 or 8 o'clock, play for a couple hours. That gives you the time to blow off steam. That's the other thing. You have a shitty day at work, you could always swing your sword at an orc when you get home. You know what I mean? It's just, it's not a bad thing.
Now, obviously, Dungeons and Dragons, I always thought when I was playing it, when I first was playing it in, like you said, the early 80s, I always thought it was totally derived from Tolkien and from the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
It just was derived. They couldn't call it that, but that's kind of what it seemed like to me. Now, since then, we've had the Lord of the Rings films come out. Fantasy is back in a big way. Young adult fantasy, regular, all kinds of fantasy, all of these. and orcs are kind of ubiquitous. They're no longer just creations of Tolkien. They're everywhere.
Yeah,
Everywhere. They're in
exactly.
Warcraft. They're in all of these different things. And obviously a lot of what Dungeons and Dragons did morph into things like Warcraft, World of Warcraft. Now, do you also play those kinds of games as well?
I did years ago, but it becomes a time sink, right?
Right.
And you're not creating; you're just playing in somebody else's creation. It's not as fun, I don't think. The creativity, the jazz when you get this interaction between players, and you create an area and in a scenario or whatever, and you throw these elements in there. You have no idea what's going to happen. It's like thrown out into an improv scene with swords.
Right. Exactly. Well, exactly. And I think that's always part of the appeal of what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
So, do you think you'll ever will you ever outgrow D&D?
I don't think so. In fact, I'm hoping get my nephews and nieces to play it with us. But they're, cell phones and everything now. It's we tried a little bit. I think they did it just to humor their uncle. You know what I mean? But
right.
I got this big collection of books that got to go to somebody someday, man. So I'm hoping to brainwash one of them into liking it.
Now, I take it you don't have kids of your own?
No. I never got married. Never had kids.
Oh well, that then you have to indoctrinate the new generation and make them make them play. Now, do you have every book that's ever been released?
No. I do have a lot though. I ended up with a couple of people had to sell their collections, and I picked them up off of, it was a Craigslist or something like that,
Wow.
So yeah, back when the foreclosure crisis hit, people were broke and they had to sell their collections, and so they needed cash. So I'm like, man, you can't. I'll buy the books, but you got to keep your dice, dude. That's like a gunslinger. You can't give up the guns. You have to keep the dice, because someday you might want to play again, and you're going to kick yourself for giving up your dice, But he gave me the dice too. I'm like, all right, I'll keep them safe. You got my number.
I love it. Well, I mean, I'm always curious because fandom, there's so many different areas and aspects of fandom. And I really love hearing these stories. I mean, I was a casual D&D player, and there's to know people now that still play. I also played another game called Traveler. That was back like the same Traveler and Boot Hill, which was a Western version of D&D. Those were the three games I played: D&D, Traveler, and Boot Hill. Those are the games that I played, and I liked them all. But it got to the point where I just got too busy. I was so into movies and all that. And you really need people that you can play with, and I didn't really have any people. I had a few people, but then it kind of went away, and I didn't have anyone to play with. But I do. The people that play D&D are very passionate about it, and it is kind of a lifelong avocation to play. So it's an area that I just love, and I love that it goes on. I mean, I even was going to get into the fastest Star Trek role playing game in the 80s.
Yeah.
I rolled myself 430 characters.
Holy shit!
I never had anybody to play with, and I was going through my Starfleet technical manual, and I even knew where, using the blueprints, I knew where every character worked on the Enterprise. I mean, I was fanatical about it.
Wow!
I had these. As a matter of fact, I found some of my character sheets recently, and I was like, oh my God, what an obsessive weird kid I was doing this with not anyone to play with. So I've never played the Star Trek role-playing game.
Man.
I mean, I had all the books and all the supplements, but I never played. And
I had one interaction with ever in my life with William Shatner, and it was about D&D-ish related, right? So it was Twitter. He's active on Twitter. I can't believe how active he is. I thought it might not have been him, but I think it really is him. He's constantly on Twitter, this guy.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, Sam Witwer. I mean, that guy, Sam Witwer.
Oh, I've met Sam Witwer. He nicest guy.
Yeah.
I'd meet him through the Schmodown, through Collider, and I met him a couple times. He was in the Schmodown, and I guess he's a big D&D player too.
He is, and they were talking about some kind of convention. They were all going to go together. I said to them, hey, here's what you need to do. I tagged Sam Witwer, and I think it might have been Will Wheaton and other people who do this, or geekdom people, And I tagged Shatner. I said, here's what I would pay to see: is Sam Witwer DM a Star Wars game that William Shatner played in. Right. And Shatner responded. He said, because I said, do it for charity. People will pay good money to see this. And Shatner responded and saying, well, I do it if it's, you can get, first of all, he said, is Whitmer a good DM? I have no idea. And I said, I think so. Yeah. He said, I'll do it if you get a couple other people involved. And I said, well, shit. If you're going to do it, I want to be involved. For giving me the idea. You know, I never heard back. I don't think it ever happened, but that was my own. I saved those things in a screenshot, though. William Shatner talked to me, you know.
I love it. No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. So, does D&D have a bright future then? I would assume that it does.
It's been more popular than ever, really, man, because what's going on now with COVID, it kept people home and people are learning how to get online and do it. And it's really having a huge, I think they have their best sales ever, you know, in this past year, they're saying. And that's the newer edition of the game, which is sort of a happy compromise. Maybe a lot of people feel between, you know, rules bloat and the old school look and feel, you know? So yeah. You met Shatner. You did the movie with Shatner. What is he like in real life, man? What is this guy like?
I'll tell you, Shatner was, first of all, he's a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. He really is he has a lot of energy. He is a person that likes to go out and do things. Like, he rides horses, he plays tennis, now he's 90, but he's very physically active. He loves to travel. He loves to sort of drink in life. What he doesn't like to do is I don't picture him as somebody who's sitting around obsessing over a television show. Yeah. Which was always so funny because fandom is sort of the antithesis of William Shatner.
Really?
William Shatner is a guy that wants to go drink life. I mean, they say at the beginning of every Star Trek episode, boldly go where no one has gone before. Well, Shatner epitomizes the idea of boldly going. He loves, I'll tell you a funny story. I really haven't told this story. So after I made Free Enterprise, Shatner calls me up and he says, Rob, I shot this video with Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing. and he goes, you know, I'm thinking about using it as like a TV presentation, a pilot presentation. I wonder if there's anything you could do with it. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. So I go down there.
You got to say okay just to see Shatner and JR in the same scene. You got to say okay to this.
Oh, just you wait. So he gives me this footage and he says, yeah, we kind of did this thing and I'm wondering if you could kind of cut it into something. And I didn't quite understand what he was telling me. So I go and look at this footage. Mm-hmm. So do you know what paramotoring is?
No.
Paramotoring is when you strap literally a propeller to your back. It's a big propeller.
That's a thing?
And you're holding a parachute.
Yeah.
All right. And what you do is you turn the propeller on, so it's, you know, then you run and the parachute catches the air and you run until the parachute is pretty much, it's ready to take you aloft, and you kick out your feet and the motor takes you aloft. And you literally fly on a parachute with a motor strapped to your back.
Holy crap.
And it's called paramotoring. So this video, it's just, I was watching this in awe. Uh-huh. So this video is, at first, it's Larry Hagman, J.R. Ewing, and William Shatner learning with a guy down by the ocean to paramotor. And it was the day they spent doing it. And mostly it's Shatner filming J.R. Ewing, but then sometimes they would turn the tables. And so they train, and then they try and do it. And each propeller on one of these motors costs $600 each.
Jesus.
And Larry Hagman broke 3 of them. He couldn't get aloft. He would fall over, you know. And Larry was frustrated. I'm watching. I mean, I Dream of Jeannie, Dallas. You know, I'm watching Larry Hagman do this, and then of course it's Shatner's turn.
Yeah.
And piece of cake. He does it. He runs. He gets aloft, and he is flying, and he's buzzing the ground and everything. And I have full reign to do whatever I want with this footage.
Oh, man.
So I basically cut it into, it turned out to be like a 15-minute, like I didn't know that he wanted like a quick presentation. He wasn't very clear with what he wanted, but I really made a day of it. So it's them going in and learning, and Larry breaking propellers and Shatner laughing at him and stuff. And, I mean, it was to me. I cut this thing together, and I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was like the great. And it's funny because I still have the tape somewhere, I believe.
Dude,
So Shatner really didn't. He had me cut it down, but cutting it down was not fun, and it led to when we were doing a sequel to my film Free Enterprise that we never got made. We incorporated that. There's a subplot about Shatner starting a reality show called William Shatner's Extreme Adventures, and he goes with a celebrity guest and does crazy things, like he goes shark diving.
Yeah,
he's going to balloon over the Himalayas with Richard Branson from Virgin, and that was and that all came out of this tape because he really did it, and you're watching Shatner paramotor, and then when I was working on the Lord of the Rings special features, because I worked on the documentary for the extended editions of Lord of the Rings, all those, there's 10 hours of documentary and documentaries. Well, I worked on those. I was part of the team. I worked on Fellowship and Two Towers, and then I worked on Chronicles of Narnia. I left and went and did my own thing on Chronicles of Narnia because Disney poached me from the company I was at. But while I was working on Lord of the Rings, was when I cut this stuff. Yeah. And it was hilarious. I mean, it was entirely hilarious. So working with him was great. But the thing is, when you're actually doing the work, he's not necessarily a demanding taskmaster, but he does expect you to know exactly what you're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And exactly what's in his head, whether he told you or not.
Oh, no, not that. But so for instance, when we did Free Enterprise, it was a lot of our first movie. And I made a mistake once where when you're setting up a scene in a movie, like just say someone's sitting at a table, they're having a dinner with a friend of theirs talking, that would be a scene. And what you do is, before you shoot it, you do what's called blocking, and you block the scene and you get focus marks and you get lighting marks so the director of photography and everybody can light it and get ready to go. So once the scene's blocked, the cast leaves the set, and then you bring in stand-ins if they need people to light. But the cast doesn't. They go back and they learn their lines, and you don't call them to the set again. And this is what I learned, until you're ready to start shooting. Okay. So if you bring a cast member out, and then the DP is the director of photography is futzing with the lights, actors don't like that necessarily because it interferes with their process. Yeah. So everybody was very nervous because it was Shatner's first day, and so when we brought him back on set, our DP was kind of futzing with the lights, and Shatner takes me aside. First scene. And he knows it's my first time directing a movie and everything. He says, Rob, it seems to be going really well. Your crew seems really on it. But he says, if you bring me out to shoot, that's our time. That's your time. It's my time. That's when we're working together. We're shooting these scenes. I don't want you to bring me to set until you're ready to shoot. Wow. And he was very nice about it. Yeah. He wasn't a dick. And I said, Bill, understood. It won't happen again. And it was a really great lesson to learn that served me well, because Shatner doesn't want to waste time. And when he comes out, he's ready to shoot. When you bring him to set, he's ready to shoot. And that was a lesson to learn. And he told me it never came up again. Because I learned my lesson, and it was a good lesson. And that was, I think a lot of people have had difficulties with him because they don't necessarily understand that he's a professional. Yeah. That's all. And he expects you to be a professional too. Yeah. And what's interesting is, when you're a professional, it means you understand that when you're working with actors of some note or people who have been in the business for decades, you need to understand that they know what they're doing. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get what you want from them, but you have to do it in such a way that it doesn't it doesn't tread on their process or their. You don't want to go and piss all over their lawn. Yeah. So there's this famous tape that I guess Howard Stern used to play, where Shatner was at a voiceover session for a Star Trek game, and it's the word sabotage, and the director's like, I would like you to say the word sabotage, and Shatner's like, it's sabotage, and they had this, and you could tell it's just a funny thing, but that director made the mistake of trying to tell William Shatner how he should play Captain Kirk.
Yeah.
And I would never presume.
That's balls, man. That's big balls.
I would never presume to do that. But other than that, I mean, he was incredible to work with. He delivered a terrific performance, and I love the man. Yeah. And he was ultimately very sure. Does he drive a hard bargain? Yes. Is he going to do you any favors? No. You pay Shatner to work for you.
Yep.
And like you do for any professional. I'm sure when you're not into the pro bono work, you're like, no, I'm here to help, but I bill whatever I bill an hour.
Gotta have food.
Yeah. I got D&D books to buy, man.
Yeah,
come on.
Darn it, more dice.
Well,
it's interesting you say that because you had it almost today, Edward James almost. I caught like a half hour of it, and I caught a part where he was talking about he has creative control over his character.
Wasn't that interesting?
That was amazing. I'm like, wow, this guy, because in the 80s, I mean, I know he was big then, or Miami Vice, whenever it came out, but I didn't realize he was that big because I was young, right? To have somebody have that much level of control over his character, Demand didn't always get it. But he could pull it off. I mean, Jesus.
There's an amazing video. Whenever I interview somebody, I try and do a lot of research, actually.
And I tell you did a lot.
Yeah, I watched an amazing bit of a film that he had done. It was like for the American Television Masters or something, where he talks about his first day working on Miami Vice. And it's a story about a battle of wills between actors and what he wanted to do and how he came up with the role of Castillo and the character of Castillo. And it's an amazing story, but you listen to it and you're like, he was right. Yeah. He stood his ground and he was right. And what he did forged the character of Castillo. Yeah. So that's always something that's really interesting. And I think, you want those kinds of actors. You want
directors. Directors. You need it. The auteur way, I think, is the way to go. Otherwise, you get crap.
I totally agree with you. Now, on that note, I want to just, before I let you go, by the way, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And
thank you, man.
And thank you for sending me the pictures. Again, I'm going to make a video out of them. And
that's cool.
And it's great. And I will give you full credit, Joe the lawyer.
All right.
But, bringing it back home.
The
fact that you went and saw Tango Shalom, I'm curious, when you left the theater, what were the impressions? I mean, you talked a little bit about earlier how we needed those kinds of movies, but I wonder if there were any other impressions that you were left with from the film.
I thought it was a nice message of the unity of all religions, in a sense. You know what I mean? In terms of the banana analogy, right? Do you want to say it? Do you want me to describe it?
No, go ahead. You can say that. That's fine.
I'm not quite. I'm going to mangle the wording, but it's basically there was several people he consulted with while he was having his crisis of faith there, and it was it almost like starts with a joke. A rabbi, a priest walk into it. He talked to a priest. He talked to a Hindu. I don't know the name of their head of their religion.
He was a Sikh mystic. That was
Sikh mystic.
Ravi Pranja. He wasn't really a Sikh. He's the traveling mystic. He's sort of. He goes into he's a Hindu, he's a Sikh, he's whatever he needs to be.
Okay, that was good. He spoke with a Muslim, imam, I think it was. Yep. And what was the other one? What am I blanking on?
There was a Catholic priest, an imam, and a Sikh.
And a Sikh, yeah.
And then also his grand Rebbe.
Yes. So he had all four religions covered there, basically. And at the end, the big wedding scene, everybody shows up except for the imam, but he wrote a letter, which and he says, I hope, basically, I couldn't come because of my beliefs, and then hope, congratulations, the whole bit. And he sent a gift of a banana, and he basically the rabbi peels the banana, and basically the message was, four skins, but all surrounding the same banana. 4 pieces of skin, from the banana peel, but inside is what matters. 4 different religions, but it's inside is what matters.
Yeah, the banana peels are each represent the religion, but inside is the banana.
Yes, perfect.
Which perfect. I thought that was funny. I love that you say that, because when we were making the movie, I'm like, is this gonna work? Like, are people gonna buy this? Like, I don't know, but they have. They've sort of embraced it all.
Yeah, it had, like I said, it's the same vibe as Amelie, where there's some, like, Amelie was a little more corny on some levels. Yours wasn't corny, but it was cute, I
Right.
guess is the better word, right? And so, and there were certain things that you kind of like, this probably might happen, and it does happen, but maybe in a different way than you thought. But it was still some unexpected surprises, but the bottom line is, you just felt good afterwards. You know, it was a good message.
I love that you feel that way. I mean, so the movie worked.
Yeah.
Well, listen, it's great to meet you, and I want to thank you
too,
once
man.
again.
Me too.
Thank you for going to see the movie, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And I understand because of your work. I mean, we can't see you. Maybe one day,
Yeah.
maybe we'll have to bring you back and do some kind of virtual D&D game. Maybe you can. Maybe we
that'd
can
be
do a D&D tutorial.
That'd be cool, man. If you want to play in the game too, let me know, man. We got plenty of openings.
Yeah,
You know?
I would have to. I'd have to like take a boot camp or something and a primer. How do you play D&D again? 'Cause it's been
We
so
do the
long.
old school game, and that you don't need to know anything. You just roll the dice and go with it. See what happens.
Oh, that's good. Hey, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I want to
Hey.
thank you for being here.
Thank you. As we leave it, can I just throw a suggestion out?
Please,
You
absolutely.
were talking about 1982 being, I think, the best year for movies ever, right?
Yeah.
40-year anniversary is coming up next year of 1982. Why don't you maybe do some sort of organized event where every weekend of the year, when the movies that came out that weekend, you have a watch party or a watch through, or suggest the order of what you might want to see, and then you have something to talk about, and we could pretend it's 1982 again, watching the movies in order.
That's a great idea, because Scott Mance came on the show talking about the documentary that they're trying to kickstart. That is a great idea. Although I have to tell you, there are certain days, like John Carpenter's The Thing and Blade Runner came out on the same day.
Mm-hmm.
Poltergeist and Star Trek II came out on the same day. My God, would we do both?
Oh yeah,
Make it like June 4th, 1982. It'll be what this Saturday is. 2 days from now is actually the 40th anniversary of the release of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh wow.
So I'm going to bring some guests on Robservations, and we're going to talk all things Raiders and about the new Raiders.
Cool,
and yeah,
you think they're going to pull it off with the new one?
Well, I heard something tonight. I heard from a trusted friend.
All right, this is not a Doomcock source. This is a
no. This is
All right.
legit source. Now, my trusted friend, who has worked in the industry for a long time and has very high-ranking friends. He heard from two different people who had read the script.
Okay.
And they both said it was great.
Oh, good.
So, and I've been saying to people, I don't think James Mangold, the man who made Ford v Ferrari, who made Logan, who did the remake of 3:10 to Yuma. I mean, this guy is a powerhouse director, and this is right in his wheelhouse. I think that if anybody could pull it off, James Mangold could. So apparently, at least the story is really good. And that gives me pause. I mean, I'm like, okay, I'm hoping for the best, because I want this franchise to go out on a high note.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you hear about Dune, the new Dune movie? Anything good?
Well, I read the script. It was fantastic. It's fantastic.
Okay.
Now, the only thing is, it's only the first half of the book Dune.
Of the first book,
of the
right?
First
Not
book.
even, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what they were going to do, from what I understand, the plan was they were going to tell the Paul Atreides story in a trilogy of movies. So you do Dune, then the second movie was going to be called Dune Prophet, because it was basically the second half of the first book, Dune.
Yeah.
And then the final book would be Dune Messiah, where you see Paul Atreides' story, which of course doesn't end well.
No.
Billions of people die. So his jihad didn't go as well as they might have hoped. But that would have been a great. I mean, I hope Dune does really well. But apparently, it's a very handsome film. But the script was just terrific.
That's good.
So,
if they could get to God Emperor, that was my favorite of all the books. How are they going to pull off God Emperor? I still read that to this day once in a while, just because it's insightful.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I want them to do all six. There's Dune, Children of Dune, or no, it's Dune, Dune Messiah, Children of Dune, God Emperor, Heretics, and Chapter House Dune.
Yes.
I would love them to do all of the Herbert books.
Me too. Attach the cast, make it work, man.
Yeah.
I hope it comes out in the movies. That's one of the ones I want to see in the movies.
Yeah, I think they've decided that it's going to exclusively be in the theater.
Yeah.
And I think it opened, because in October, I think Dune opens now in October, along with the new Bond film, No Time to Die, which I'm also dying to see. So, I mean, I don't want to die to see it. I want to see it before I die.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see it.
Tell you what, thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me on, man.
Joe, you have been great. Thank you so much. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks very much for all the pictures you sent me. It really meant a lot.
Sure.
And have a good. You have a long weekend, so
I do 4 days plus a wedding in Jersey. So
and a wedding in Jersey. So have a good time at the wedding. And
Thanks,
and if it's a real Jersey wedding, are those fun? Is it going to be like a Sopranos wedding?
If there's beer. If there's, then yeah, we're gonna have fun. If there's, that's pretty much what it's gonna come down to. It might rain. It's an outside wedding, but if there's liquor, that doesn't really make a difference, right?
Yeah, who cares?
It doesn't matter.
Once the bride gets over the fact her dress is ruined, big deal.
That's you fall in the mud. It's over with. Now you just it's fine.
Take the pictures first. Get all the pictures out of the way first, and then go have a party.
All right, man. Well,
all right,
very
sir.
Much, buddy.
All right. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, anytime, Rob.
Thanks a lot. That was, of course, Joe the lawyer. I want to thank him for going to the movies, as you heard, and then also what a great insight into modern D&D playing. I love that, and thank him very much. I mean, if anybody ever sees Tango Shalom or anything, I love talking about that because when you make movies, you don't, you can read reviews, but you don't normally get to talk to people just. The everyman or the every person, the every woman who goes to see your film because there's no reason that you would. And people come up to you and they say, "Oh, I really loved your movie," or "Your movie was all right." So it's nice to hear. That was good to hear. Darth Plato says, "I did one session of the Star Wars RPG. I made a bounty hunter called the Defenstrator. The DM asked me if I had a special method for killing people." Did you? That sounds like you should. I think that could be most excellent. Now, I have a letter. Written to the Midnighter from Benjamin Del Manto writes in. And he wrote this on June 8th. Hi, Rob. I just wanted to comment on Midnighter 009 when you were discussing with Esther and Jeremiah about the topic of rock music losing its popularity. They both had some great points about the essential birth and death of the genre as a reflection of where we are as a country. Rock music had a good run for about 50 years, and perhaps it has fulfilled its purpose as a cultural movement. Perhaps it will now pass into the realm as something that is to be revered as an art form from another time, much like Renaissance painting. As Esther mentioned, rock music wasn't accepted to widespread audiences at the time it was released. Pop music was always the top choice for music charts, but pop music was always dependent on being current, and pop would come and go like the wind. Over time, audiences would come to appreciate the talent and ingenuity behind the previously released rock music. Rock was inherently rebellious. It was considered dangerous for its time. It was something that offended the general morality of culture at large. It outraged parents to the extent that they would throw albums into the fire to protect their children's ears from words and ideas that were contrary to the messages presented in their home. But now, in the new millennium, rock is no longer rebellious. It has been around long enough to be absorbed into every aspect of our culture. And worst of all, in the minds of the youth today, rock is dad's music. It used to be the devil's music, and now it's dad's music. I love that. And every kid knows that whatever dad considers to be cool can never really be cool. Furthermore, the dads in the new millennium are not the same dads that were around at the birth of rock music. In the 50s, the average man walked, talked, dressed, and worked very similar to the other men in his community and shared a generally accepted standard of behavior. Family, friends, and community had each other's back and kept each other in line as well. Anything considered rebellious was a challenge to their culture and way of life. Today, many dads are men in their mid-40s who still dress the way they did as teenagers, have full sleeves of tattoos, and smoke weed in front of their kids. The spirit of rebellion has become the culture. What are kids supposed to rebel against in an age when the new cultural message is, do whatever you want? What function can rock music play when it is not branded as offensive by parents, and the news is not reporting the dangers of the messages behind the music? How can it be edgy when your dad likes it too. I was born in the 1980s, at a time when we were bombarded with new music every year. Rock music was already an established genre, and I went along for the ride. In the last few decades, as I've noticed its decline, I rarely have anything new that has the same thrill of the rock music from my childhood. I find that I must travel backwards and listen to the music from before my time in order to find something new that also has some substance. Unfortunately, the new, older music has already had its cultural impact pass it by, and what was once rebellious has moved into the category of art. Rock music, thank you for your service. It has been a wonderful ride, and I will continue to celebrate the good times we once had. I hope to see you again one day. Rob, keep up the good work, and rock on. Regards, Benjamin Del Manto. Well, you know what, Benjamin? First of all, fantastic, fantastic letter, and I think you nailed it. Very succinct, very direct, very to the point. I have to say, I do agree with you. I really do. I agree with you. I think you're spot on. Yeah, I think that's what a great letter. And I wonder, by the way, if the same is true of all of our franchises that we love. Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Are these franchises, are they, Star Trek is 55 years old. 55 years old. And Star Trek was born out of the hope of the Camelot spirit of Kennedy's White House. That spirit is gone now. And everyone, the future that people believe in now is more of a self-actualized one. It's not so much a meritocracy where everybody expected. The Star Trek future expects everybody to step up and be good at things. And don't allow, it's hard work, it's dedication, and you got to make it happen. And it's a very different ethos now for people. I think people want to be happy and comfortable, and the idea of working, aspiring to something that's greater than the sum of its parts. I don't know if people have that in them anymore, much less want to see a franchise that's about that very thing. So I think you make some really great points, and I want to thank you for your letter. Magic K sends in a super chat and says, I missed the show yesterday. What's your thoughts on Zack Snyder's Twilight of the Gods cast revealed? Well, for those of you who don't know, Zack Snyder is doing an animated series for Netflix. Well, to me, I have to tell you, I obviously for an animated show, one of the greatest, most important things, having learned this because I've been working on Dota Dragon's Blood, the voice cast can bring so much to the table. But it doesn't, your star power doesn't necessarily, unless you want to put it on a poster or something, doesn't necessarily help you out. I was more intrigued by the idea of the Norse gods. If they're going to do Ragnarok and all this, Ragnarok for real, like the Norse Ragnarok, not necessarily the Thor Ragnarok that was depicted there. I'm excited. I think that whatever they come up with, I think it'll probably be pretty damn great. At least I hope it will be. And it excites me that he's doing that, and they're doing an Army of the Dead animated series, so there's a lot going on. I think it's going to be terrific. I hope. Hope springs eternal. I hope it's going to be good. Listen, I thought I could go longer than I could tonight, but I had, of course, the Edward James Olmos. I've done so much today, and I'm finding my vision is now blurring, and it's not because I can't see. I'm going to have to bring the Midnighter to a close early tonight. I hope you don't hold it against me, only because I am falling asleep. Sometimes I just can't keep going. And I will be back, of course. Tomorrow is Friday for the Midnighter. This is the Midnighter for what is it? Midnight Metal. And of course, I'm on the John Campea show tomorrow at 10 a.m. again. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, gentle beings, kind souls, imagination connoisseurs par excellence. And remember, we are having a members Zoom call this weekend for anybody who's a member of the channel. You can become a member of the channel for as little as $1 a month. Of course, you're not limited to that. You can promote or you can support the channel however you want. But for members, we do these Zoom calls, and they're great. Everybody gets to see each other's faces. I get to talk to everybody. It's so much fun. So, and then also on Saturday, I've got some special guests, and we're going to be celebrating the actual 40th anniversary. June 12th, 1981 was when Raiders of the Lost Ark actually opened. So we're going to be there. I want to thank Bunyan Snipe for moderating tonight, and Dean Mikatich, the UK contingent. One day I'm going to come over to the UK, and I'm going to party with Bunyan Snipe, and I'm going to party with Dean Mikatich, and I'm going to party with Emma Bannon. We're going to get crocked. We'll drink many pints along with whiskey, which will be good. So I want to thank you all for being here and moderating. I want to thank all of you for supporting the channel via tips and super chats and all of that. And if you want to send a letter to the Midnighter, or you want to send a letter to me or to anyone involved with Robservations or the Burnettwork, you can at the Burnettwork.net website. Yes, this YouTube channel does have a great website, and you can read other people's letters and comment on things, and there's lots going on the website. And we're going to launch, I believe in a week, we're going to officially relaunch the short story competition. As many people know, we are publishing a book of short stories, an anthology called The Imagination Connoisseurs, and we're going to be relaunching that now that the film festival took so long. We're going to finally award the films a week from this weekend, and it should be a lot of fun. And on that note, I will say to everybody, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, gentle beings, kind souls, I would say to all of you, have a better night. And I mean that.